The following presentation contains content that some individuals may find sensitive or distressing.
Greetings, dear listeners, and welcome to another enthralling episode of Fables from the Forgotten. I'm Sarah Crawford, one of the voice actors on the team. Before we dive into today's tale, we want to extend our deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us on this journey. If you've been enjoying our stories, please take a moment to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep the magic alive and ensures you won't miss any of the thrilling adventures we have in store. Now, gather round as we embark on our next story, Mustache and a Spittoon.
Good evening and welcome to the crossover, dear guest. Are we still pretending like nothing has happened? All right. Back to the matter at hand. Another patron strides through to the Scourge, the tavern where our keepers watch over the souls of the departed. He dons a high-crowned, wide-brimmed hat that tilts to the side ever so slightly. He has the scars of someone who has seen battle and lived to tell the tale. Well, until now. Goliath, don't sit in my chair. What shall his fate be? To be condemned or to be rewarded? Or perhaps he shall be given a meek farewell.
Nice place. Nicer spittoon.
Chewing tobacco? Aerith, how can you stand the taste? I thought we discussed that this was an unhealthy habit that you shunned after our marriage.
It's rude not to indulge the guests, when their habits could be worse.
Yeah, sounds about right. I'm down for the smoke still. You got any drinks? Huh, this isn't my usual tavern.
You are in the crossover. The Scourge, as our dear keeper of tales Alabaster often mentions.
We wish to hear your tale, and since you are no longer in the realm of the living...
To put it plainly, you are dead. Apologies, my love unending.
I've never heard an apology uttered so sincerely from your lips before, Aerith. It's almost as though I've received a present at the end of an eternity of 1,000 insults.
And you might have to suffer 1,000 more if we don't deal with this cowboy quickly.
I'm dead. Good news, then. I suppose I have a story to tell.
Well, if you value your soul.
And whatever's left of your mind.
Please, oblige us, guest. Tell us your tale.
It was a rather dusty, empty hole, even by frontier standards. Flies buzzed in the midday heat. Smell of horse droppings wafted through the swinging doors of the saloon. The chewing tobacco pinged against the spittoon. Stuff tasted awful, though not so awful to send me back to the smokes. Gods, I wanted one then, and I still want one now.
Another?
Yep. The barman's gray mustache bristled as he poured out another measure. I swished the cheap whiskey in my mouth, letting it take out one bad taste with another. Outside, the dragon roared. Again. I figured it was making another pass over the settlement, flying low, but not low enough for the hunt. Strange that. Stranger still that I'd gotten used to it.
You from out of town?
Yes. The old man stole the occasional glance at my katana, like it was his for the taking. Finally, he summed up the courage to ask.
Is that what I think it is?
Depends on what you reckon it is.
An atomic blade. Smythe original.
A powerful blade.
What you mean to say is it could have cleaved through that old man's skull.
Well, a weapon is only as great as its wielder.
And it was, well, a thing of loathsome beauty. A white handle and a matte black sheath. Something I couldn't handle losing. And that barman, well, I doubted he wanted to be on the receiving end of the blade. Did you serve, old man?
Second expansion.
Third suppression for me. Whiskey.
They were only just starting out with that sort of gear in my time. Never got to use it in the regulars.
No, not in the regulars.
You were special forces? Augmented?
They deactivate the augments when you discharge.
But they let you keep the sword. Bet that thing would cut through a steel beam.
Yeah, it's sharp. A bullet's quicker, though. I patted my revolver, and this time the glass was filled, unbidden.
So what brings you here? Few prospects for a veteran in these parts.
My first idea was to ignore the question. Second, to deflect. And my third was to straight up lie. The whiskey, however, had different ideas. You hear that fucker flying around?
Nope. My ears are ornamental.
Dragon eggs.
Dangerous business, that. Reckless.
Ha! More like boring and stupid. I spent 2 months scrabbling about that mountain, digging through that bastard's leftovers, through its shit. You know how many different roosts it has?
No. I do know there's easier ways to make money.
Ha! Like what?
Prospecting?
Nah.
Mercenary. Plenty of outfits looking for talent. You'd get snapped up real quick.
Talent. The word triggered a flashback. One filled with murder and blood and berserker lust. Oh, I had my talents. And I'd burn for them, too. Well, I assume that's your job, keepers. Have you heard enough of this?
Well, not exactly. You haven't finished the story. Even Aerith seems eager.
At least I don't pretend to be entertained by dull mortals. But this obviously makes you uncomfortable, dear guest. So please continue.
I'm noticing some tension. Should I come back another time?
She
I
said
said
continue.
Okay. Simmer down. Yeah, well, it's not always about money, is it? I met a warlock. Real weirdo. Reckons he can give me a fresh start.
How's that?
God damn it, the memories, old-timer. All the sin and pain. He reckons he can wipe it all clean. He just needs a dragon's egg.
Would you even be you anymore?
Oh, I'd still be me. Only without the gods' damn night terrors.
Only madmen and fools deal with warlocks.
Maybe I'm both. But I've been called, friend. What do I owe you?
You leaving town?
Even with the whiskey, I was wary. Why's that? What's it to you?
Nothing to me. Just figured... Never mind.
Come on, old man. Sell out. I placed a hand on my revolver, and he raised his hands.
Dragon egg. Someone beat you to it. You, heard of Wade Whitley?
Nope.
His gang found the egg about 3 months back. They've been keeping it down low on account of the bounty on their heads. Pretty hard to find a buyer when you're living in the woods.
Outlaws. Reckon they'll sell? Those old eyes settled on my katana.
Reckon they might trade.
Another trigger. Another flashback. Another village burning. Another tribe consigned to death and slavery by me and my fellow elites, deemed inhuman savages by the army. To me, their screams have been human enough. How many's in this gang?
5.
There weren't many of them. Mulling it over, I doubled their numbers for safety's sake. Gangs were hardly a rarity in these parts, but they never lasted long. That life tended to cull the weak and the unlucky. You think you can set a meeting?
Well, I need your word on that sword. You'll trade?
I touched the sheath, the instrument of my damnation. Yeah, I'll trade. The meeting point was an abandoned fossickers camp, half a day's ride from town. It was at the edge of the woods near the foot of the mountain and right where the plains met the river. I'd passed through there before, though I hadn't seen any sign of life. The tin sheds were gutted, their wooden frames left to rot, and the tanks and troughs to rust. Tufts of rope and cloth and chemicals comprised the remaining detritus. My stallion drank from the shallows before I tethered him. I took a once-over of my revolver, both my daggers, bullet belt, and then sword before tucking into some jerky. Damn warlock. Damn dragon's eggs. The crunch of boots turned me around.
Reagan, is it?
The newcomers were typical. Dirty and bearded and lean. Leather armor and leather coats. They carried rifles and pistols, machetes and hatchets. At least one had the stench of possession. They numbered 11. 12 if you include the juggernaut at the rear, pin-eyed and crowned with a foot-high mohawk. It was naked, bar for a loincloth and a spiked shoulder pauldron. It carried a warhammer in one hand and a bastard sword in the other. Just how they got that thing, and the rune that controls it, would have been a story in itself. I could pick out the leader by the quality of his coat. Wade Whitley, I presume.
Right you are.
Barman said there were 5 of you.
Barman's a codger.
The gang formed slowly, some posturing before the juggernaut's presence, others hovering their hands over guns and blades. I decided then and there who would get the bullet and who'd get the blade. I knew how this would play out. Had known since the barman dangled the carrot. Still, it was worth a try. Pa, curse his soul, taught me that much. First, talk nice. Then, talk mean. Then fight if you have to. Can I see the egg?
Show 'em, Nate.
Nate, which I guess was short for Natalia. I'm no guessing man. Pulled out what looked to be a bundle of silk from her saddlebag and unraveled it.
Beautiful, ain't it?
It was just as the warlock said, an inner light and glass-like shell, alive and swirling with color. Beaut. But I didn't like the sound of Nate's voice, too saccharine to be sincere. How'd you get it?
Beast whistle. Had a shaman tune it for the dragon. Distracted her with it. Took the prize.
Well, I wish I'd thought of that.
What do you want it for?
To forget. I'll trade you my sword for it.
I considered that. Turns out you were dumb enough to come here alone.
You sure you want to die? I gripped my blade by the center of the sheath and raised it slow, holding it before spinning in a flourish.
Domine tenebris ad mi podestatum morieris.
Well, I knew who'd be the problem then. She was the one with the stench of a demon's hex.
Drop the blade, get on your horse, and leave. Simple.
Well, that was the end of my chivalry. I pulled the sheath away, and the length of the blade burst into life. White hot and shimmering, its edge honed to the width of a single atom. Or at least that's what the folks at the Smythe said. In an instant, my augments were activated, giving me a shot of feral energy. It made me faster, stronger, and utterly fearless. Bullets flew, 2 from my revolver and the rest from Whitley and his gang. The leader moved quick and avoided the killing shot. The man behind him died in his stead. The other to his left fell in a screaming heap. I ran and emptied my revolver. 1, 2, 3, then 4. And the riflemen at the edges? Dead before their comrades had let off a second round. Molten lead pinged off my coat, cuirass, and skin, utterly deflected by the augment's energy field. From toes to fingertips, those wires traced the length of my skeleton, keeping me humming with energy. I closed the gap for the third volley of bullets, flung a knife at the nearest man's eye, and lopped Whitley's pistol hand clean off the wrist. Then she was among them. A tempest of slash and murder amidst the mundane bodies.
I'll carve out your heart with that katana.
4 more perished before Nate sprouted horns and demon wings. Egg close in hand as she launched at me. She had a banshee's scream and razor claws. Fast, so fucking fast. I slashed and parried and countered and carved away chunks of its body, even as those talons raked me from shoulder to navel. I kicked out and unleashed energy in a 2-handed swing. Nate's horned head parted from her neck. Blood and oil fountained from the stump. The body shriveling as that infernal possessor went screaming into the ether. I touched the tear in my breastplate and spat up some blood. It had been a long time since someone had hurt me. I glanced over at the juggernaut. It was impassive and unthinking, until it wasn't. Until Whitley raised his good arm from a group of bodies and a glowing rune between his fingertips.
Attack!
I aimed for the throat as that bastard sword came up and caught my strike dead. Blade bit blade. My sharper and smaller katana cutting a deep notch in the heavy alloy. I twisted and yanked, but failed to pull it free. I let go and was booted flush in the chest. I rolled with the blow and came up in a crouch. His warhammer smashed me in the ribs, sent me crumpling in a heap, and my augments began to power down. The tribes had been fierce, but not fierce enough. What if they had owned a bloody juggernaut, an elite? I should have never joined the army. The juggernaut towered over me, my katana still stuck in its ugly bastard sword, and its war hammer raised for the killing blow. It was staring at me with those lifeless eyes, but then they shifted as a greater shadow fell over the camp. A roar, a rush of hot air. There was a wall of flame, a firestorm so complete that the juggernaut simply winked into ash. I curled into a ball, covered myself in dirt and the remnants of my augments field. I opened my eyes as a hot wind granted me another breath, and the earth quaked. The dragon walked over to me when finally the tail slid through the ashes, sifting through the piles of bodies. I sat up. Its nostrils flared as it hovered over Nate's corpse. The egg cracked and spilled. The dragon raised its head and unleashed its sorrow. Such a roar. It went beyond hearing, beyond sound, and yet the meaning was clear. It vibrated through me, through my body and my very soul.
My child. My heart. My love.
The dragon gathered its bulk and whatever magical energies permitted its flight. It spread its wings and cold, pausing to lock eyes with me. Then it leapt for the sky. Whitley was still alive. Fair play to that. An outlaw leader ought to be tough. You want me to end it? Better than bleeding out.
Barman said, augments deactivated.
Ha! Barman's a codger. I snatched the beast whistle from his neck. They deactivate them when you discharge, not when you desert.
Strap my wound. Save me.
Ha! Why?
Trade.
Trade what? I'd stolen from his pouch a handful of cigarettes. I lit one up as he croaked out another sentence.
Another egg. Check my saddle.
Their horses hadn't been shot or burned, but sure enough, I found the second egg. Looked identical to the one previous. When I returned, I took the man's belt and wrapped the stump that had been his pistol hand. Pointless, but deal's a deal.
Take me with you. Take me to town. I have gold.
I studied his face. He wouldn't make it. I placed the egg on his chest. Here, look at that. You know, my pa never did much good, Whitley, but he knew how to sound wiser than he was. He said, you can't undo old wrongs. You can't run from them. You can't forget. He said you can only make new rights. Does that make sense? Ah, Whitley. Should have made the trade. I looked to the skies, but saw no dragon, and heard no roar. Figured she couldn't have gotten too far. I raised the whistle and blew. The call pealed out a note that transcended human hearing and language. Somehow, I knew its meaning. Come on, girl. Make it right. And then, well, I went on my way, but my adventure took a turn.
A Tarask.
That's always how it ends.
So what'll it be, bartenders? An eternity of damnation? Or peace?
The soul makes me melancholy. He regrets the blood on his hands and thinks one good deed will omit all of my vengeance. All those people he slaughtered. Their families demand justice.
Our job is melancholy, dearest. Yes, regret cannot change the past, but when he had the opportunity to remove his memories, he gave it all up for the sake of a dragon who could have burned him alive.
That ending would have been more satisfactory.
If you do not wish to hear my reasoning, can you at least listen to the dragon he aided?
Summon the creature, then.
Great keepers of the crossover, what do you desire from me?
We ask your opinion, Abathine, for you were a witness to the actions of this man. What do you say? Has Reagan earned his place of rest and eternal peace, or does he deserve an afterlife of damnation?
He is mortal. Most are consumed by greed and violence. But he returned my child, nearly forfeiting his life. That act deserves to be rewarded.
One act of kindness cannot undo all of his violations.
Tell me, Eternal, what is the price of your forgiveness? You have seen every manner of soul walk through this tavern, you have forgiven worse, and you will still. I don't doubt when my time comes, you will try to send me to my damnation, claiming it to be some scheme for your vengeance. But for now, I live, and I advocate for this soul.
Do you truly have such a low opinion of me, Abathine? Vengeance is a demanding mistress.
I think forgiveness and compassion are harder to earn, Keeper. And Oregon, he even forgives your sins, not out of his duty, but out of love.
You were not there the last time he... You have no right to judge me, or my husband.
I think you were doing that all by yourself.
My dear, I suppose Aerith has decided, and so have I. Thank you for your input, Abathine. Are you ready, Reagan?
Never am.
I feed on the bonds between mortals, and you have very few. But as Abathine mentions, you...
I'd prefer to judge this one, darling.
Oh.
After all, you owe me one.
You have been denied your vengeance, Aerith. I can understand your bitterness, but bringing our spat into this judgment...
Can I ask for a tiny bit of patience, my love?
Very well.
I sentence you to an eternity of peace.
Thank you.
Well, good to see our keepers have resolved things. In relation to the patron, I mean. Reagan, it seems, was a man of many talents. Mostly for shedding blood, but deep down his heart was true. To earn the blessings of a creature so pure is no small feat. Abathine's words carried weight even beyond the mortal realm, while her blazing fury delivered her vengeance upon Wade Whitley within it. However, there are many more strange stories of redemption or revenge. Perhaps you might delight upon another in the next
Fable from the Forgotten.
Hi, and thanks again for coming to our production here at the Community Theater. Don't forget to put your name down for the softball tournament. As always, proceeds will go to the burn victims of the last community theater fire. Mustache and Spittoon, produced by Dungeon Studios. Directed by Josh McGinnis and Michael Riley. Edited by Michael Riley. Script adaptation by Hannah Stoltz. Music by Dragonstern and William Lanham. Starring Tyree Mapson as Alabaster the host. Tim Roberts as Oregon. Hannah Stoltz as Aerith. Michael Riley as Reagan. The Upright Man as Bartender. William Lanham as Wade Whitley. Bailey Martin as Nate. Sophia Stefanovich as Abathine. Laughing Goons played by William Lanham, Joanna Grotenhouse, and the Upright Man. My parole officer says my community service ends in a week, just in time to see Pudgy and the Hamburger Stand. You want me to do it again?
From toes to fingertips, those wires trace the lengths to save my skeleton. Keeping me humming with energy, I closed the gap for the whole third volley of bullets, and I flung a knife at the nearest man's eye, and I lopped Whitley's pistol hand at the wrist.